Phase Zero's Road to Deadpool and Wolverine is rolling on. I am Brandon Davis, joined today by Jenna Anderson.
Hey, everybody.
We got Jamie Jirac.
Good morning.
And we got Deadpool 2. Today is the Deadpool 2 review and discussion episode. We only have 2 movies left after this one. 2 of the best movies ever made. X-Men Apocalypse and The New Mutants. So I know everybody has been waiting.
Apocalypse.
Oh, wait, sorry. X-Men Dark Phoenix. I got confused because we're at that really high quality stuff and it's also interchangeable because they're so good. And I know that everybody who's been with us through X-Men, they sat through X2 with us, the first Deadpool, Days of Future Past. They're like, when do we finally get to talk about New Mutants and Dark Phoenix? Well, guess what? We're getting close. So if no more interviews or crazy moments or any trailer reveals or something happen, those should be the next 2 weeks here on Phase Zero. But today's all about Deadpool 2. Just a little breakdown on how the show works. We start out with Jamie's recap. Then we go into our social reactions as if the embargo just lifted, because I was working at Comic Book when this movie came out, obviously not hosting Phase Zero. I believe, Jenna, you guys were here, right?
Yeah, I was here. Yeah.
Okay, so we were all working here by the time Deadpool 2 came out, but times were a little different. We didn't do this show back then. Then we're going to take a quick break, get into a deep dive discussion, all that kind of stuff. There's one little thing I have to say about this that I think might be like a kind of spoilery thing about footage for Deadpool and Wolverine. So I'll give you a warning. We'll take 60 seconds. You can mute, skip ahead, whatever you got to do. We'll make it very clear when that's going to happen if you don't want to know anything about things we've seen. And then at the end, after one more break, we will rate Deadpool 2 out of 10. That's the drill. So Deadpool 2, real quick, before Jamie's recap, directed by David Leitch, written by Rhett Reese and Paul Wernick, released May 18th, 2018. Very interestingly sandwiched between Avengers Infinity War and Ant-Man and the Wasp, which was a really big time for comic book movies. It was shortly after Black Panther, right before. So Ant-Man and the Wasp was the last Marvel movie of 2018, right?
Yeah.
Because then it was Captain Marvel was the next one, and that was 2019.
Yep.
So
right.
It sort of had that advantage of dropping right there at the hot time of Marvel movies. It had a $110 million budget, and it made $785 million worldwide. R-rated movie, was printing money. I dare say Deadpool and Wolverine is about to make more than that, given the fact that I looked at the IMAX ticket sales that went on sale this morning for San Diego, because that's where I'll be that weekend because of Comic-Con. And I woke up 10 minutes after they went on sale, and that thing was already full. So anyway, This is all about Deadpool 2. Jamie?
Well, it's been a week since I watched it, so we'll see how I do. We don't have Aaron to clock me, but
we do have something.
Oh, we have an official timer.
Oh, it's official now. Thanks, Richard. All right, are we ready?
Let's see how fast you can do it.
Okay, let's do it. Let's go. Deadpool 2, here we go. It's a sequel, baby. So it starts off, Deadpool, what's he doing? He's trying to kill himself? He's trying to blow himself up? That's crazy. How's he going to succeed with that? I don't know what happened. Flashback. He's been kicking butt. He's killing gangsters. He's doing all this stuff. And then he kills the wrong people, or he goes after the wrong people. He's like pissing people off. And so they come after him. And what do? They kill his girl, Vanessa. What? No, not Vanessa. We love Vanessa. This is so wrong. Why must you do this? So he's depressed. He's really sad. And then he's like, I'm going to blow myself up because I can't live without my girl. And he, does that, but he's Deadpool, so he doesn't die. He's really sad. And he's all like, oh no, what am I going to do? And then his pals, Colossus, is like, oh, let me help you. I'm going to take you to the X-Mansion. It's finally time. You're going to be an X-Man. Let's do it. And so he's in there, and it's, once again, just the only 2 X-Men that these movies have, Colossus and Teenage Megazonic Warhead. Oh, and then Yukio's there. Hi, Yukio. And he's like, no, I don't want to do it. I'm so sad. I'm rolling around in Charles's chair. I'm being really disrespectful. Where is everybody? Why is nobody in this house? Opens the door. Oh, look, that's the wrong cast for this era, but they're here. Hi. And then he's like, okay, I'm going to be a good guy. Let's do it. And then they go to this school where this kid, oh, look, it's our pal Russell. He's got fire fists. And he's like, I'm going to kill people. And they're like, no, you can't do it. And then Deadpool's like, this kid's been abused. Bang, bang, kills everybody. And Class is like, no, why did you do that? You're supposed to be X-Men. We don't kill people. He's like, I'm done. I can't do these roles anymore. It's ridiculous. And then they're like, all right, you and that kid are going to jail together. You're going to share a cell together. How about that, buddy? And so they're off in this big old jail in the the wilderness, in the frozen wilderness. And they got their little collars on, which means our old friend Wade, he doesn't have his powers. Uh-oh, he's dying from cancer again, because that's what happens. And Russell's like, I'm going to shiv the baddest guy in here, and I'm going to be a real cool kid. And he's like, dude, no, you're a tiny child. You can't do this. And he's like, no, I'm going to do it. I'm your best friend. And he's like, we're not best friends. Also, I'm dying. Maybe find a bigger guy. And then he's like, okay, peace out. But guess what? They figured out how to escape, because that's how these things work. And they're escaping. And he's like, oh, you know what? I don't like that kid. And the kid overhears, and he's like, oh, nobody likes me. I'm going to go find the biggest guy in here. Like the guy said, oh, who's the biggest guy in here? I bet I know. I bet it's Juggernaut. Oh, they're teaming up. So then Deadpool's off on his own, and he's like, you know what? I'm going to save that kid. Now I feel really bad. I'm having different feelings about it. What's going to happen? Oh, by the way, oh, what? Who's after the kid? They're at the jail before they escaped. Somebody's coming after them. Who is this? It's Cable! Cable wants to kill this kid! Oh my god! Why? It's because in the future, this kid is gonna kill Cable's family because he turns evil. And then he's got this teddy bear and it's all burnt because he's like, my daughter and wife are dead and I'm gonna kill this kid! So Deadpool's like, I'm gonna get a team. What are they called? X-Force! We're gonna go after Cable, we're gonna save this kid, let's do it. And oh man, they got all these people in there. What a team. It's so cool. And he's like, let's go. Oh man, there's kind of high winds today. Oh, that's not gonna be a problem. They all go on their mission. They jump out of the plane and everybody dies except our girl Domino, because you know what, she's lucky, so she's good. And they're like, oh, look at that giant truck, I bet you there's somebody in there, let's go save the kid. And then Juggernaut's in there and he's like, Juggernaut, oh no. And then they're all fighting and it's all this stuff. And then we're coming down to the big climax where Deadpool meets up with Cable, because now they're like maybe gonna work together. And he's like, Cable, listen to me, Russell hasn't done anything bad yet, he hasn't killed anybody, let me get through to him, and if he doesn't kill anybody, you can't kill him. And Cable's like, okay, we'll do it. And so they go, and then, oh, it's getting heated. Everyone's doing it. Everybody's fighting. Domino's like, oh, look, I used to go here too, into this abusive home for mutants. Oh, no. So and then they're all fighting everything, and Russell's like, oh, are they going to get through to him? And Deadpool's like, we can get through to you, and they get through to him. And he's like, yeah, we get through to them. But then, oh, no, Deadpool dies. He's like, oh, I must die and be with Vanessa, and I'm gonna die 7 times, and then finally I die. But oh, what happened? Cable used his only rewind juice to save Deadpool's life, because he turns out a really nice guy. And he's like, I'm just gonna stick around because I want to save your future. So you know what, Deadpool? Here you go, buddy. You're alive. Yay! Everything's happy. Yay! Russell's okay. Yay! And then the movie ends. But oh, does it end? Because Deadpool got his friends to fix Cable's business. And now he's like going on town. He's fixing everything. He's like, oh, here, Vanessa, she's alive. Oh, Ryan Reynolds making Green Lantern. Oh, he's dead. X-Men Origins, Deadpool, he's dead. It's hilarious. Yay, everything's good. Everything's happy. The end.
Wow, 446.
Yes.
Impressively
Bravo.
done.
Thank you.
Honestly, covered most of the movie. I feel like we could drop the podcast there.
Honestly.
Snaps for Jamie. Everybody show love in the comment section. Almost 400 people watching live right now. We appreciate you. Everybody who's listening in podcast form. You don't get to see the animation, but I think you can feel it when you listen to the Jamie recap.
Shout out to Brendan, who says he swapped shifts at work to be here. We admire the dedication. We really appreciate that.
Yeah, we love that. You could have just done it on your lunch break, but hey, we appreciate you being here. Jenna, I'm going to let you kick us off on the reactions to the film since I've yapped a bunch. Jamie's yapped a bunch. Go ahead and yap a bunch about what you think of Deadpool 2.
Oh boy, I have been both looking forward to and dreading this episode. As I have hinted repeatedly on the show, when Deadpool 2 often comes up in conversation, I had only seen this movie once. I had seen it in theaters opening weekend, and there was a lot that I did not personally vibe with that really, really frustrated me, and that kind of soured my experience. I went into this viewing experience with an extremely open mind. I was like, let's just see how it is. I had almost exactly the same reaction. There are individual components of this movie that I thoroughly enjoy, and I'm sure we will break all of them down, but like, this is just personally not one of my favorite of the Fox movies. I think that the humor is very interesting. There's a choice that they make that kind of like just makes it more tiring than it kind of needs to be. There are just individual elements of it that frustrate me, which we will get into, but I don't know. I like it. I admire the effort, but it is definitely not one of my favorites.
Jamie, where are you sitting on this?
You know, when I first saw this movie, I actually had a very different reaction than Jenna. I liked it more than the first one, the first time around. And that's because a lot of times I get tired of origin movies. So I'm just like, oh, good, a new story. That's exciting. And then I watched it one other time on a plane since this time. This is my third time. And I no longer think it's better than the first one. I do like the story. I like some of the stuff that's going on, but as Jenna pointed out with the humor, I don't think I laughed once watching it this time around, which wasn't the case rewatching the first one, because both I haven't seen too many times. But let me tell you, Tony was next to me chuckling, so I know the humor's out there for some people, but I was just like, it's not hitting me. A lot of these jokes, there are stuff I do like in it. I do like the X-Force stuff. I think is funny, similar to Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. I think it's funny when they introduce characters and immediately kill them. That is a bit that I enjoy. But yeah, overall I think it's like a fine movie. It's all right. I don't have strong feelings against it like Jenna does, but I get where her feelings are. I'm very mid on this one.
I seem to be the highest on it, though I wouldn't put it above the first Deadpool. I watched it last night with my mom, and the both of us were laughing quite a bit. Like, we had a really good time just watching this. I thought it was pretty funny. There's definitely some humor that I'm like, all right, guys, that was a little, you took the low-hanging fruit joke. And every once in a while, I still laughed even when they did that. So I just think the CGI doesn't. I don't even remember having strong criticisms of the CGI when I first watched it, but watching it back last night, maybe CGI has come a long way. Well, actually, no. There's been plenty of things recently. They're not all Planet of the Apes. The CGI stuff, some of it was kind of not great, but I'm not really a huge stickler for that kind of thing. So there's things that I thought were kind of silly, but also, I mean, overall, I really enjoyed this movie. I like Deadpool 2 quite a bit. I don't think it's better than the first one by any means, but I also just wish, I love Josh Brolin. I wish Cable was a bigger guy.
Yeah.
I wish Cable was...
After X-Men 97, I at least wish he had a bigger costume, because I feel like there was a way to make his costume bulkier and more that like kind of 1990s aesthetic, and not like as slim as it is in this movie.
I'm all in on superhero physiques for everyone who plays these characters and is willing to do it. And there's just like, if you're Josh Brolin, you just can't get to Cable size. You have to cast like The Rock or John Cena to do that. So I get it. But I don't think either of them would make a good Cable. So I don't have like, but a skin tight bodysuit for Josh Brolin's introductory scene as Cable, really showing us, yeah, this ain't the Cable from comics and animation. It was fine. It was whatever. But like, he's a good actor. He has a good voice for Cable and all that, a good kind of grittiness to him. But other than that, I like this movie quite a bit. I laughed my ass off. Like, I'm not gonna lie, I laughed quite a bit watching it with my mom. Two of us had a great time, and yeah, so not as good as the first Deadpool, but still I really enjoyed it. I'm also a sucker for like an emotional payoff moment, and that sequence when Wade talks to Vanessa. I actually have a short film that's like a 6-minute version of this whole movie, and it's on my Facebook page that I wrote like years before I saw this. And I was like, I went up to David Leitch after the movie came out. I was like, dude, I've just made it was like the same time too. Like John Mason and Richard, we all worked on this. And it was like the same type of story that Deadpool 2 told over this raunchy 2-hour comedy. But I know I really enjoyed that element of it. All right. So we're going to take a quick 1-minute break. Did you guys have anything else on the reactions front you wanted to talk about before we do? All right. Quick 1-minute break. This is a fantastic opportunity to subscribe to the Phase Zero channel on YouTube. Act like you're still working if you're watching it in your office. And then come back because we're doing a full discussion and Easter eggs and all that stuff for Deadpool 2. See you in a moment. Welcome back to Phase Zero. This is the discussion, Easter egg breakdown portion of our Deadpool 2 review. The 10 score will come at the end of the show. So if you guys caught any Easter eggs or anything, drop them in the comment section if you're watching live. We're just going to kind of go start to finish on the movie. Opening scene. Commentary about Logan being killed off in Logan. And I love that kind of meta stuff. I think fourth wall stuff, it works for me. I dig it. And he opens up, says, I'm going to die too. And he does later in the movie. So is there such thing as too meta when you come to like characters like Deadpool or She-Hulk? I don't think so.
I would say no, but I also think that She-Hulk does it better. I mean, I'm not just trying to get on Jenna's good side. I truly believe that.
Why?
I think that. Why do I think it's better?
Yeah.
I just think that sometimes in these Deadpool movies, they're trying too hard. It feels
Yeah.
try hard to me, and I'm sure that that's not everyone agrees with that. But and sometimes like of course they had to acknowledge that Logan died. Like I have no problem with that. I think that I love meta stuff. That I don't think there's any limit to how much we can do that. I just some of the jokes, the way that they deliver them in these Deadpool movies, I just don't think it's funny. Whereas in She-Hulk, I always laughed. So I guess it's just that's the beauty of comedy, everyone. There is no genre that can be different for everyone than comedy. It is the of all genres, everyone's sense of humor is different. Let me tell you, I worked in comedy for a decade, and it's just it's everybody's different, and that's okay. It's beautiful. I love that about it. And that's but I don't have a problem with how much meta this movie is. I don't have an issue with that.
I will say it's an interesting note to go off of, or to start the movie on, to BD's point at the start of the show of how this came out right after Infinity War, and like having the opening kind of not only poke fun at Logan, but start to kind of poke fun at superhero deaths and at death in comic book media, which is kind of like a through line of the entire movie. It was like I was still emotionally traumatized by Logan by the time I was watching this in theaters. I was definitely still traumatized by the ending of Infinity War by the time that this was playing in theaters. Like I could literally go to the next theater over and watch it. And so I think it is an interesting note to start on. And I do think there's like value to having it be that meta, but like to Jamie's point, it might be like a little much.
I mean, it's definitely like an abundance of fourth wall meta commentary, like try hard, but I laughed at most of it, not all of it. I laughed at most of it. It didn't take me out of the movie at any point, but I love just being a Marvel fan and recognizing that so many of these jokes are like, man, if you're in this space, if you watch Batman versus Superman and you were a part of the conversation, you're going to get an extra kick out of the commentary we're making, the jokes we make in this film. And if not, well, I don't know, maybe I don't know what it's like to watch this movie without knowing like all the things they're joking about. I imagine it's kind of it's a weird experience, but yeah. So the movie cuts to 6 months before that. Deadpool's on an international killing spree, basically. This sequence, when I saw Endgame and I saw the Ronin scene, just the lighting and like the neon lights and the setting and all that kind of made me like the sword play and all that. I was like, this is reminiscent of what we just saw in Deadpool 2 less than a year ago. Obviously, there's no connection, but I can't believe the only one who had that thought. Am I? Okay.
I totally think you're right aesthetically, and I think that a lot of times because of the just the neon nature of that area, it just kind of it's the same place, so it's gonna look similar.
Yeah.
And then that whole montage ends with Deadpool running towards Dopinder's cab, sort of like Indiana Jones when he's yelling, "Start the engine!" He's like, "Start the car!" And he dives through the back glass there. There's an Alpha Flight ad on the top of the car, which is not the actual Alpha Flight as we know it being advertised, but Alpha Flight is a group of mutants. Jenna, would you like to profess us?
I mean, I'm not extremely familiar with Alpha Flight. They are just basically like the Canadian equivalent of the X-Men, ostensibly. Like they're in the original animated series. There's plenty of comics with them. Wolverine's on them for a lot of appearances. Deadpool's on them here and there. Like it is just the Canadian superheroes.
Yeah, created by John Byrne, Sasquatch, common Alpha Flight member, North Star, Snowbird. Didn't we just see a bunch of them in the X-Men 97 finale?
Yeah, we did.
Okay. So that takes us to Deadpool being late to hang out with Vanessa. This is our first DC joke of 3 that I counted on this rewatch, where he's giving fake reasons for why he was late. And he says, "I was fighting a caped badass, but discovered his mom was also named Martha." At the time, this was just a layup of a joke for those of us who were embedded in the comic book movie culture. Obviously, a Batman versus Superman jab. That's still a joke today when you even talk about Godzilla and Kong fighting. You're like, oh, they're going to find out their mom's name is Martha.
At this point,
what?
Sorry, I was going to say at this point, I think the Martha joke is almost as overused as his parents died in an alley joke. Yeah. Like, we get it. But it is
6 years ago.
That moment, you're right. This was the right time to be making fun of that movie because that was a stupid thing that they did. like, wow, what a oh, we have our moms with the same name. No, I think that's dumb. But at this point, like, I do think they overdo that joke. But at Deadpool 2, no, it was still a little fresh.
Yeah. And then there's 2 more. We'll get to the other DC references later. Wade and Vanessa, they want to have a baby. They watch Yentl. That's got Barbara Streisand starring in it, which is Josh Brolin's real-life stepmother. And the writers admitted they just outright forgot to make a joke about Barbara Streisand. and Josh Brolin's real life relationship in how they're really like how they're in the same family. So yeah. There's also 2 Kevin jokes early in the movie. Like Deadpool says he wants to name their kid Kevin. Forget what the reason what he said he wasn't. And then there's the Scoutmaster Kevin joke. There was also Feige's Pizza in the first movie, so maybe that is like a Kevin Feige little nudge nudge. And then the movie kills off Vanessa. So I'm just gonna open it up.
Jenna has thoughts.
I'm just gonna open the floor here.
This is what soured me in my initial viewing experience, and what has still made me not want to thoroughly love this movie. I'm rewatching it now. They didn't need to kill her. You could have still had the same general plot of like her wanting to have kids, him maybe not necessarily agreeing, or maybe something about his like ability to have a family and his ability to be good with kids. And then that still could have led to the Fire Fist storyline. We still could have had the rest of the movie play out. I get why they did it. It is also just very funny to me because Gail Simone, who has written Deadpool, coined the term fridging, and the writers of this movie didn't even register that that was a term and that that was a trope that happens in comics that people don't like. And it just, I don't know, it soured the entire experience for me.
I'm not a fan of the choice either, because you're right, it wasn't necessary. But because he reverses it in the end, it doesn't bother me that much. But I would have liked to have seen her more than just like in a ghost veil, like sitting on a couch. Like I think it's a disservice to just her. Like she could have done a lot of cool stuff. But it doesn't bother me as much as it bothers you.
I also think reversing it for me, I was like, oh, good, she's still alive. But then it also felt like then, I don't know, I felt then like I was in the wrong for having been sad for the past 2 hours about her having died. Like it felt like, oh, the stakes were kind of meaningless because they just reversed them all by the end of the movie. And like that kind of soured it even further for me. But again, I know that that's just my opinion on it.
Yeah, it didn't really sour my experience. I thought that I think that they tried to use that as the kind of emotional heart of the film for that moment towards the end. I think that they thought that would end up being like the emotional payoff, whereas it could have been Russell a bit more. And it kind of was like Russell had a good payoff, but I think that they ended up using that, as the plot device. Which, yeah, I understand the frustration with it, but it didn't take me out of the film. And they did get her back in the end, and now we see she's going to be very well. I don't know. Can we even? Maybe we'll save all the Deadpool and Wolverine talks for the end, assuming no one here has seen any footage and doesn't want to talk about it. But yeah, but it was an interesting choice that they later acknowledged. First of all, the credits call the writers the real villains here, whereas the first Deadpool calls them the real heroes here. And then also when they did the Deadpool and Korg crossover thing, like Deadpool made a joke. He's like, "Oh yeah, he makes a fridging joke," and he's like, "Do you know what that means?" And Korg is like, "No, I've never heard of that." Whatever he says, and he's just like, "Well, go see Deadpool 2. You'll learn." So it's kind of like a thing where Ryan Reynolds acknowledged it through that. And that doesn't, I fix obviously Jenna's opinion or experience with the movie or people who have that opinion, but it is interesting that Ryan Reynolds is aware of it. And it's just like, well, maybe we did kind of F up a little bit on doing that. And then, like I said, the opening credits, they become, wait a minute, directed by Did You Just Kill Her? Produced by What the F? The writers are billed as the real villains. And then that goes to Blind Al pointing a gun wherever she points a gun and quoting Matthew McConaughey. Blind Al gets me to laugh every time. I'm not going to lie. I think she's hilarious.
Yeah, I like Blind Al a lot as well.
Yeah.
I also should the McConaughey "You got to keep living" quote, but also when Deadpool puts the cocaine in his mask and smashes it. Maybe I have a childish sense of humor, but I popped for that. I thought that I knew it was coming too because I've seen this movie before, but I still laughed. Still laughed pretty hard.
I will say, as a big Bond fan, I liked that they were spoofing Bond openings in this moment. And I do enjoy the way that they do the title sequences because they did it in the first one as well. But I do, as somebody who loves Bond, all the references in this movie, I like more when they're not about comic book movies. Like my favorite joke in the whole movie is not when he calls Josh Brolin Thanos, it's when he calls Josh Brolin One Eye Willie. So like where my Goonies fans at. So yeah, I like when they step out and start poking fun at other stuff too.
I'm curious how much of Deadpool and Wolverine is going to do that, because it is so clearly so Marvel heavy, which I know I'm going to eat up But I also appreciate the things you just said. Like, I love those references too to other things. It's like, oh, okay, yeah, I saw that movie. I'm in on this joke. Those sort of jokes just make you feel like, oh yeah, I get it. Then we go to the X-Men. I go to the X-Mansion. There is a cameo there where Deadpool was rolling around in Xavier's chair, making the same jokes he made in the first Deadpool movie, talking about how there's never any X-Men there. Oh, we made so much money on the first one. You think they would have gave us the budget for people to show up in the second? So we get a cameo through a door frame of Quicksilver, McAvoy's Xavier, Beast, Storm, Cyclops, Nightcrawler. They're all played by the young cast because this was filmed, directed by Simon Kinberg. Quick shot. They lined up the light and they did all this stuff to line it up and make it look like it was, seamless through the door there. They were never on set together, but it was filmed on the set of Dark Phoenix. This don't make any damn sense. Deadpool's supposed, that should be Patrick Stewart and Kelsey Grammer and all the older actors, not the children. But
I remember I looked down at my popcorn when I saw this in theaters and I missed that moment. Like, it happened so fast. I read about it online after the fact and I was like, where were they in this movie? And then eventually I found it out. But it's literally blink if you miss it. And to have it be that short of a moment and not make any sense in the canon whatsoever is just even more maddening.
Doesn't make any sense at all. But I don't care.
It doesn't it's always fun to see them, but it doesn't make sense. It feels so out of place. It's so clear that they weren't there. It's so obvious. Also, I do want to point out, I do love the joke that Deadpool does that no one's ever hear, because every time I watch X-Men the animated series or now X-97, why is there not a single child at this school? In either show, you never see a single student. And so I like that Deadpool kind of takes that and rolls with it, because where are you, a school for children? I've never seen a child in any of these shows once.
Where are all the mutant Padawans? Yeah, it doesn't make sense. If this were like the MCU, I'd probably care a lot more, but the Fox universe just doesn't make sense. So you just kind of go a movie at a time. So it is what it is. Then we meet Cable, a bit smaller, like we talked about. He wakes up and the ash of his family, travels back in time. One of the things we see is the X-Jet. Okay, we're moving on. The X-Men, Deadpool shows up in an X-Men trainee. What do you call those little yellow, like a penny? Like what, flag football. Richard knows what those things are called. Those little things you wear, little jerseys, but
I
not
was just
jerseys.
gonna say a jersey.
Yeah. And anyway, shows up to stop Russell, aka Fire Fist. The bottom of the screen has a couple Easter eggs to references to people who worked on the film, and Christopher Plummer refuses role in Deadpool 2, which seems to be possibly based in reality.
It was because it was around the same time there was the Kevin Spacey movie where Christopher Plummer replaced him, and they literally digitally cut Kevin Spacey out of the movie and put Christopher Plummer in. And there was, I remember, stuff with TJ Miller that was happening in the lead up to this movie, and so that was kind of the joke. And I do remember, though, because seeing this in IMAX, the aspect ratio cut that joke halfway off. You could only see half of the chyron, and so I knew the joke was being made going in, but I was like, oh, that sucks that I can't even fully enjoy it as the joke at the bottom of the screen.
Yeah, that would be annoying as hell. Russell calls Negasonic Justin Bieber, which instantly Wade is ha, Canada. Yeah, I like this kid. And then they're sent to the Icebox, which is basically Canada's Mutant Supermax.
Couldn't remember the name. Which you'd think I would, because they reference the Icebox on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. But it escaped my when I did the recap. I was like, the icy wilderness. I couldn't remember.
I like your wording of it anyway. It worked for me.
I watched New Rockstars and Heavy Spoilers before this and the movie, so I'm pretty. All the terms are fresh in my mind. Cable, he shows up in the present or whatever the frick time this is, where James McAvoy is Professor X, but anyway. And he uses a stun gun on a redneckified Alan Tudyk and Matt Damon. I didn't know that was Matt Damon the first time I watched this movie. No. I had no idea.
I have to talk about this because it is my favorite bit in the world that Matt Damon just shows up in things.
Yeah.
The amount of Matt Damon jump scares in cinema, and sometimes it's so I think everyone would agree Eurotrip is the best of the best when it comes to shocking Matt Damon cameos. But also sometimes in movies like Interstellar, he just shows up an hour and a half into the movie, and you're like, what? Where do you come from, Matt Damon? It's his whole career over the past, I don't know how long, he's just like, ha, gotcha, I'm here, guys. And it is my favorite thing because I used to, one of my old roommate hates Matt Damon. I have no issue with Matt Damon, but like the amount of times her and I watched a movie, including this one, where she's like, what? Why is Matt Damon here? And I think it's hilarious. And it's just something that makes me really happy.
Why is Matt Damon? No Jimmy Kimmel though.
Nope.
Oof. Or Ben Affleck. I feel like there had to be a joke about this on the Jimmy Kimmel show at some point.
Probably.
But probably if I YouTubed it, there would be one. Yeah, he does just be showing up. The X-Force is assembled. Bedlam, Zeitgeist, Shatterstar, Vanisher, Domino, and Peter. Shatterstar is from Mojo World. We all know Mojo World from the animated series quite well. The reality show producer, old Mojo, just reprised his role for X-Men 97. The ratings had him a little thin, but he beefed up by the end of it. But Shatterstar, not long for this world, much like Mojo's good ratings. All of the X-Force die. We see that Vanisher is played by Brad Pitt. By the way, did you guys see If?
I did not. I know what you're about to talk about because we were tagged in a tweet about it. So I do.
Yeah, and I wrote an article about it for the site.
Oh, so. Yeah. If in case anybody listening missed it, if you watch the credits, they go by, they name all the many people who voiced all the imaginary friends. Keith, the invisible If, who everybody keeps tripping over, it says, and introducing as Keith, Brad Pitt. Which is clearly just a Vanisher reference because it's a Ryan Reynolds movie. And I thought that I cracked up when I saw that after watching If. And I liked If. I think more than most people apparently, but I liked If.
I may have been a little too generous in my review. I'll say that.
It was fine. It's a kid's movie. What did you want? It was fun.
Sure, I want a movie that makes complete sense. But I did think it was cute. I liked it. I gave it a pretty positive review. But people who hated it, I get it. Yeah, I gave it 3.5.
But 7.
People... that's not how comic book works, though.
Some scales are better than others, but some people live in the past. The scene of them all dying, yes, it reminded me of Doctor Strange: The Multiverse of Madness. I like this one more. I don't really know how to verbalize or articulate why. That said, I thought the scene where the X-Force was all dying went on a little too long, but. Maybe because I had better expectations or hopes and dreams for Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, and when they killed everybody off, I was like, really? What the and I was familiar with those characters quite a bit, or had expectations for those characters, whereas in this, I didn't care about Bedlam and Zeitgeist and Shatterstar, but I did think that the scene with them all dying went on a little too long. What do you guys think?
I agree. I think it's still effective and it still is funny, but I do think it's also the fact that Wade is just kind of standing there reacting to it also makes it feel like it stretches on a lot longer than it probably does. Because it's like, just jump off of the billboard and do something maybe. But instead he's just watching as this keeps happening over and over again. It
felt like one of those where maybe they didn't have enough money for Wade to get involved. Like there's also a sequence where the truck a few minutes later in the movie, when Juggernaut punches the ground and it goes through the bridge, like it cuts away, and then all of a sudden Domino has come out of her little giant bear that she landed on, and then the truck is fully settled, and I was like, oh, maybe they just didn't have the budget to do another 16 seconds of animating that sequence, but who knows? I mean, maybe I don't know, but it was unimportant and it worked anyway. So on the drop in, Domino flies past a mural of Stan Lee on the side of a building. That was a Stan Lee cameo in this movie. In the truck where they all fight, David Leitch, director of the movie, makes a cameo. Cable quickly dispenses of him, and we assume he died. He was a fall guy for life, and he's a fall guy in this movie. Juggernaut is voiced by Ryan Reynolds. Another thing I learned after seeing the movie and didn't know when I watched it. Also, Juggernaut was just a really well-kept secret, right? None of us knew he was going to show up in this.
I'm pretty sure, yeah.
I think that was news. That was a moment. That was oh, wow, they kept Juggernaut a secret. So...
Do you guys have a preference between the two movie Juggernauts? Because I like this one is I like Vinnie Jones because it's he's a real person that's there, and I think casting Ryan Reynolds in the part was a kind of an odd choice.
Yeah,
I don't know. I just feel but also Vinnie. I don't want to praise X-Men: The Last Stand because they made weird choices too. I don't think either Juggernaut is as Juggernauty as we could have gotten. I guess I'll say.
I don't disagree. I think it's also for me, and this is part of my problem with the humor. A lot of characters are written exactly like Wade, especially once we get into the latter half of the movie, the way that they deliver jokes almost feels very, very similar to the way that Wade does. And I feel like Juggernaut is a huge example of that. also because Ryan Reynolds is doing the voice, but it like there are times where you could literally just like pitch down the jokes that he's delivering and just like pretend that that's a wave line of dialogue and nothing would be different. So
I've said this before, but that's literally what I'm afraid of for Deadpool and Wolverine.
Yeah.
I'm afraid they're just going to make Wolverine like a Deadpool. And I'm so excited for that movie. I'm so excited, but I don't want them to do that. So
Yeah, I agree. In regards to Ryan Reynolds being Juggernaut, my theory on that is it goes back to, well, they just didn't feel like spending and doing the time to cast another person. Why not just have Ryan Reynolds do it? Because it didn't matter that much. The voice was the most important thing, and they modulated that thing to hell to make it like Juggernauty. I don't think that was just Ryan Reynolds doing an impression or a voice. I think there was some electronic things applied to that. Maybe not. Maybe Ryan can just get that voice, but I love Vinnie Jones for being practical. I really do. But I think I also enjoy this Juggernaut just because the CGI made him so big. So it's like, no human is going to be able to be that size and practically, but I'd still prefer practical in whatever way you can pull it off. So I don't know. It's like it's kind of grass is greener in both for me. Deadpool's ripped in half. He basically becomes Yoda getting carried on Domino's back. That entire half naked baby leg scene was written by Ryan Reynolds, apparently. That checks out. It's all his brand of humor. Cable shows up. Oh, we got to work together. Russell's going to kill my family in the future. If he kills one person here, he's going to blah, blah, blah. Russell talks to Juggernaut. Okay, so let's cut to, they show up to this Essex, obviously Mr. Sinister reference, home for, I forget what the official name is, but I know it started with Essex. And on the way in, Russell talks to Juggernaut about having a telepathic brother, which is why he wears his helmet. That's a reference to Charles Xavier. And Charles was in the movie, technically. And then, we got the Thanos joke with Deadpool and Cable. I think the MCU is probably going to explore Juggernaut and Charles a bit more than we got ever in the Fox X-Men movies. I think that's inevitable.
I feel like they like sibling relationships enough, and like the two of them are so at odds with each other. Even we're going to see with like Cassandra Nova, the way that they're going to probably deal with her in relation to Charles. So yeah, I feel like that is probably inevitable.
I think so. I hope so. Because otherwise, him wearing the helmet didn't even really seem necessary in the Fox movies, because their whole purpose is so Charles can't mess with his mind. Deadpool fights Juggernaut, puts his swords in his neck basically, and pulls the Black Widow line. Hey, big guy, sun's getting real low. That's one of those that if you're not an MCU fan, you're like, why are people laughing? But if you are, I love it. The playground. I saw this Easter egg online. I couldn't find the source of it, so I'm not 100% sure that it's true. But the playground where they fight at the end of the movie, where Russell and Cable and all them have their kind of standoff, where Wade tries to reason with Russell. Multiple places online say that is the same playground designed to be from Sarah Connor's nightmare sequence in Terminator 2, where she sees the bomb go off. So I went and watched it. They do look similar. I watched that sequence on YouTube. It's got the slide and little things that kids are like, swings at, all that stuff. But I don't really know what the source of that was. I couldn't find it before we started the show.
It would make sense, like they're doing the Terminator thing in this movie. I think it'd be a weird coincidence, but also playgrounds all do kind of look the same. So
sure.
Also, that set in Vancouver is just super popular. Like that has been a school in Riverdale for like almost the entirety of that show's run. So if it's one of those things of like, if you vaguely recognize any of the buildings, even like the underpass where they first fight Juggernaut is like, I recognize that from the Arrowverse shows. So it all starts to kind of bleed together.
They also, though, Terminator, there's one of the sound effects for Cable's gun is pulled straight out of Terminator as well. So I think they were trying to make some parallels with Cable. And I think they're probably just having some fun with it, being the time traveling half robot guy. When Deadpool dies, shout out to New Rockstars for finding this one. When Deadpool dies for a really, really long time, it's set to Marco Beltrami's Don't Be What They Made You song, which is from the score of Logan. So they just straight up pulled the score off of Logan and played it for Deadpool's death scene. Cable ultimately goes back in time to the moment Deadpool said he wishes he could go back in time from a few moments earlier because he said something insensitive to Cable. And I guess that's kind of like Cable's like, okay, I'll go back to that time. I'll come back here. We'll fix it. He puts the skee ball thing token in Deadpool's chest and shoots him in that, and it saves him. So that goes back to how Vanessa and Deadpool met. It ends up saving his life. He also says he has a kid named Hope, a daughter named Hope. Obviously, comics references there. And Dopinder kills the creepy orphanage leading pedophile man with his cab, which was awesome. R.I.P. or don't, whatever. Just get off the screen. That guy stunk. And Deadpool calls him Brown Panther, which was real. I thought one of the reasons I thought the Brown Panther joke was funny was because of how quickly they got that joke into the movie. Black Panther had only released like 3 months before this, right? February 2018.
I mean, yes, but I feel like they could have written the joke knowing that that movie was going to come out ahead of time. Like, they obviously couldn't predict that the movie was going to be as successful as it was, but it feels like it might have been just like a safe bet to throw it into the movie.
Sure.
And he had his debut in Civil War. You know, he was still around.
That's true. That's fair. That's true. That's true. And Juggernaut is also surviving after getting electrocuted up his butt and crawling out of a pool. So there's.
I do want to say, even though we hate the character, Eddie Marsan is such a good character actor. I love him whenever he pops up, and so does Tony. Every time Tony sees Eddie Marsan, he's like, "Yeah, Eddie's here!" So
love it. So that's my breakdown of the whole movie. Basically, we have the credit scenes to talk about, but were there any Easter eggs, anything about those, that ending you guys want to talk about?
I have one Easter egg that only I care about, but I have to bring it up. The shirt that he wears when he's in the X Mansion, which Colossus says he dressed him. So I'm now like, I wonder which character canonically has this shirt. But it references Taylor Swift's two cats, because at that point, obviously, he and like Ryan Reynolds and Taylor Swift were very close at that point. So yeah, Olivia and Meredith are on the shirt that he's wearing.
Obviously.
As I said, I am the only person who cares about this joke. So.
You think I didn't notice that? What? It's glaringly obvious. No, I had no idea. All right, credit scene. There's a Stranger Things reference. Calls Negasonic 11. Okay, that explains itself. He goes, travels the timeline, kills the mouth sewn shut Deadpool, kills Ryan Reynolds before he can do Green Lantern, encourages Hugh Jackman to return when Ryan Reynolds approaches him to do another movie. Well, that worked out. And then, so there's chaos in the timeline. He's cleaning it up. The Fox universe is saved, even though we're all going to Deadpool and Wolverine. Okay, I'm going to say something about footage that we saw at CinemaCon about in relation to that credit scene. This may be considered a mild spoiler for Deadpool and Wolverine. This was footage only shown at CinemaCon. I don't think this footage has been released online officially. So skip ahead about 40 seconds and this will be over. Do it now in 3, 2, 1. We all assume that this credit scene is the reason why the TVA is after Deadpool in the Deadpool and Wolverine trailers. But Paradox, who could be a liar because Paradox is not really a good guy, says I forget exactly what happened. I wrote this up on the site. It was like 2 months ago. But Deadpool says, is this because of everything I did with Cable's time traveling thing? And Paradox says, we're aware of what you did when you travel the timeline. This has nothing to do with that. So it's interesting that they were kind of ruling that out right away, which seemingly is in the very beginning of the movie. But yeah, I found that to be very interesting. Anyway.
I will say though, I do like all this. I like these bits. These are like the first time I watched this movie, I was really into the bits of killing the stuff and the way though I like that he used Cable's stuff to like make meta things change.
Mm-hmm.
Like it doesn't totally make sense, but I think it's funny. Also, I've never seen Ryan Reynolds' Green Lantern, and I'm like, maybe I should watch it for fun.
That should be the last movie you watch before Deadpool and Wolverine.
Yeah, it only feels right.
Okay.
I watched the deleted scenes, all of them that I could find on YouTube, just in case people were wondering. There's a deleted scene with Deadpool on a bench, and an old couple sits next to him. He tells them to go away. They say it's a free country. He tells the old woman who's holding balloons he loved her work in Up, which is clearly just a really mean joke because he says it to the woman of the two. Deadpool goes back in time to kill baby Hitler. He really struggles with it. Talks about how much harder it would be than he thought it would be. Ultimately can't do it, and it's just like, you just need some love, little child. So cutting that one probably a good choice. Would be weird to Colossus.
Well, then they make that same joke in Endgame.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I mean the baby Hitler joke is kind of inevitable, I think, in any time travel story, or like the sentiment of it. But to show it,
I'm glad we didn't have to see it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, you can find it. You can find it. It's out. They filmed it. Colossus, there's another scene with Colossus doing burpees at the mansion. Wade, and he comes inside, and Wade like has a heart-to-heart with Negasonic, with Yukio, with Colossus, all this stuff, talks to them, and he likes himself now. He has seemingly done something inappropriate to the hand soap in the X Mansion, and when he leaves, he doesn't say, bye, Yukio, which is the only time he doesn't do that. So they do
reference the soap thing in the third act when he's doing his whole big speech, because he like quotes Colossus's speech from the first movie back, and then he mentions like the soap, and Colossus is like, oh god. So I guess that's where that would have been originally.
Yeah. All right, that's all I have to say about this. Anything else?
I feel like we have to address the two Yukios
Yeah.
because Yukio is also in X-Men or the Wolverine, just as like a different Yukio.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Well, so
It
weird.
doesn't make sense.
Doesn't
At
make
this
sense.
point
Like,
in the Foxverse, nothing matters.
but there's a million characters they could have used. They're like, let's use this one we already used, but make her completely different.
The rules are there are no rules when it comes to Fox Marvel movies and Sony too.
Yeah.
At least they feel like they tried a little bit with these ones. Well, we're about to get into two movies that maybe they didn't try that hard. All right. Well, yeah, make it make sense. We can't, but if you can, let us know in the comment section. One more quick break. We come back. It's time for the 10 scores, the moment you've all been waiting for. So during the break, drop your 10 score in the comment section. Send it to us on social media. Subscribe to the Phase Zero channel. We'll see you in just a moment. Welcome back to the Deadpool 2 review on Phase Zero. This is the final portion of the show. We're going to wrap this up pretty quickly. Jamie, you're at the top of the screen. So if you would do us the honors of giving us your 10 score for Deadpool 2.
Sure. On Letterboxd, I gave it a 3.5, but a 7 feels a little high because that's what I gave, I think, the first movie. So I'm going to bring it down to a 6.6.
Wow, 6.6. All right, let's get the calculator out. 6.6 plus Jenna gives it a 1.0.
No. So see, I have the opposite of Jamie's problem, which is I gave it a 2.5 on my most recent Letterboxd log, but a 5 feels too low. So I'm going to just say a 6. I'm going to kind of split the difference. I honestly, talking to the two of you about this movie has like boosted it even more for me. Like this is almost more enjoyable than watching the movie was for me.
Oh.
So, but a 6.
All right. I am sitting at about like an 8.1 out of 10. I would say that the first Deadpool is definitely higher than 8.1. So I'd say this maybe like 8.1. I'll go 8.1 out of 10. So between the three of us, divided by 3, 20.7 divided. Wow. A 6.9.
That feels
nice.
Very
That feels very
Deadpool.
fitting.
Very
Yeah.
Deadpool.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, the Phase Zero score for Deadpool 2 is a 6.9 out of 10. All right. Well, that's our score. Everybody in the comments, go ahead and leave us what you think. 750-something people watching live right now across platforms. So drop us your thoughts. Subscribe to the channel on YouTube, youtube.com/c/Phase Zero. And Jenna, any last words for today's bonus episode?
It's at Hey, it's Jenna Lynn on social media. And as always, go read some comics.
Jamie Drek.
Hello. Since I'm not going to be here on Wednesday for our news show, and I'm sure you're going to all talk about the Agatha titles, so I'm just going to say, told you so, been saying it forever, suck it, I knew what was going on. Follow me at Jimmy Jirek, Letterboxd and all that business. Love you guys.
How do I follow that? My goodness. That's our show. We still have Dark Phoenix and the New Mutants ahead. There are our last 2 stops on the road to Deadpool and Wolverine before the main event. So we'll be getting those out likely in the next 2 weeks, unless something else comes up. Go to comicbook.com/Marvel because Jenna just did a fantastic interview with Brad Winderbaum, which you have seen everywhere. Even if you didn't know it came from Jenna, it did. There is so much interesting information about Marvel animation plans and Marvel Studios. Oh, no, excuse me. Marvel television plans and what Marvel television even means. So you can find all that on comicbook.com/Marvel. On the YouTube channel with Phase Zero, we have the X-Mansion tour, which was just an awesome Airbnb experience. We got to go up there, and I filmed a full tour of it, so go check that out. There's just a lot of good stuff happening on a comic book and on Phase Zero. We really appreciate you guys supporting it. So thank you for that. Play our show for your mom, play it for your dog, subscribe to our channels, and we will see you on Wednesday for our regularly scheduled, a really chunky episode with so much Marvel news to talk about because we've been putting it off for a couple weeks, but we're finally getting back to it. We'll see you there.